everyone. Welcome back to Owning Her Health. Dr. Lisa here. So excited that you're here. We have a great episode today. Eva Alberts is the story for me um, of the heroine's journey. And that's all of my stories are of the heroine's journey. All this whole idea of owning her health, which I cannot believe now is 4.5 years old. There's been some hiatuses, but we're celebrating 4.5 years together. And each time I've put an episode out, I've been trying to show that version of the heroine's journey. And as I was early on in this quest and bringing in this idea, even before the Me Too movement, and then that obviously turned into its own story of evolution, and through 2020 seeing what's been going on. I think right now we're at the rates of 1989 in terms of the job losses that were particularly hard on the impact of women, because we have a whole story over there, which is my next episode, in terms of what did we do wrong through the feminist movement that ended up in 2020 being such a horror show, in terms of women having to leave and step out of the business world that they had pushed themselves, and propelled themselves into for these years. But Eva's story is this one. What would you do? What would you do? How would this catalyze you? If lived your life in your own, years in the radio industry and music, being a singer, and TV industry. You had that life. You're taking care of the kids. Your son, one of your sons is now 20-year-old, athletic, healthy boy. This boy is one day, seeing him up on horses and doing all these athletic things, and you get a call, and within 24 hours, you're at his bedside. They don't know what's going on with him. This illness comes over him, and you don't even know if he's going to live. And you've got your life, you've got other kids at home, you've got this guy now basically for the next 2 years was debilitated, needing help, coming back into the needing care from her. What did she do with this? What every medicine woman does. You take your pain, you flip it into a passion of some way. She ends up being a book author. She ends up going through that, needing her own personal journey of transition, and went into the work of Jack Canterfield, went into joining that program, became somewhat of a coach, and learning these, universal laws that helped her in her success through this period. Then turns that into her work now with women in midwifery, and even starting a course, an audio course, to help women at very pivotal time of just postpartum, getting through those first 10 days and then beyond. This is the work of the creatrix. This is the work that I'm talking about. In owning her own health, she became a storyteller of a way that a woman could rise, like the phoenix rising. And I've been showing you over these past 4.5 years all these different stories of this same similar conversation. And where we're at right now, and why I love it so much, is that all of that stuff I've been talking about, this thing that we're doing, this is the time, guys. This is the time. This is what we've been working for. This is what we've been changing for. This is what all these stories have been for. And so, Eva Alberts is sitting there in Switzerland. We're talking over tech. I'm interviewing her. I met her over on a TV boot camp thing for trying to get her message out. I'm trying to get my message out. I'm going to use my leverage off my platform. She's writing a book in collaboration to get a book published. I mean, this is the way we work, guys. This is the way women work. This is the way we've always done it. This is the way we've gathered. And in nature, we even see the females, like the elephants, have like a little school and everybody's taking care of it. We see the village. We need the tribe, especially during pivotal years. And it's not just in those early years, because to be perfectly honest, those early years were very masculinized. We're able to go out and hunt now. We're able to go do these things. But come our 30s and come our 40s, we need to, when we're starting our own families, when we're birthing these ideas and these businesses, these things, these creatrix type of ways, when we're coming together, we need our tribe. We need not only just our sister tribes, we need conscious brothers. But the only way we're going to get it is if we start highlighting and helping other people to highlight their story. So without further ado, let's listen to Eva Alberts and her journey, which is that heroine's journey into what she's doing now and what she can bring to you.
Welcome to this episode of Owning Her Health with your host, Dr. Lisa Holland. Join Lisa as she starts the conversation on what it really takes to become a healthy, wealthy, and whole CEO of your life. Listen in to real talk by real lady leaders in all walks of life as they open up on personal health stories, wealth, career, and feminine abundant living. Learn how to grow by owning your body, expanding your mind, and aligning your soul with the purpose only you can pursue in this world. Happiness begins with owning her health right now.
All right, Eva, so here you are, Eva Alberts. You live in Iceland. You had a successful career as a midwife, singer, radio, TV host, business owner, and entrepreneur. But your life took a U-turn in 2015 when one of your 5 boys, I thought it was actually 3, so in the intro, forgive me for that, but it was 5 boys, was seriously ill for 2-3 years, and you ended up with PTSD after fighting the healthcare system for his care, which is a common thing. Women, if they're not going through it themselves, for having some of these chronic conditions, of which women have much more autoimmune problems, chronic pain, things like that, which is a whole nother conversation why this happens with hormones and things like that. You had to do this even for your son. And this traumatic experience led you into this healing journey, getting new certifications, having a life change. Tell us a little bit about your journey, your heroine's journey, as I mentioned in the introduction, because this is a really, really interesting way. And yet, so many times, this is the medicine woman's way. So thank you very much for being here.
Well, what shifted things in my life was my son's illness in 2015. So I have 5 sons, and he was 20 at the time. And he was an athlete, very fit and healthy, and he's a horse trainer. And all of a sudden, he was going to sleep, and he calls me. And then I find myself at the ER, standing and thinking he was going to die. So that led to 6 weeks of hospitalization, 3 weeks in the ICU, no diagnosis. And he was, well, you could almost say kicked out of the hospital the same day he was discharged from the ICU. So this just ended up in them wanting to admit him to the psychiatric ward, and he's never been mentally ill. So, and then he went home, and 3 years of fighting the healthcare system.
Wow.
So during that time, I had to find a way to survive myself, because I had 2 other boys here staying with me, and it was really hard. So I came across Jack Canfield and ended up signing up to his Train the Trainer course, because I have, when I saw Jack, it was just a short video. Then I thought, wow, these success principles are principles that I have been using. And this is really a tool that I need to combine all my education and experience. So because I am, I worked for over a decade in the radio as a radio host and TV host, and I've been, involved in the music industry. I'm a singer, involved in the music industry for 4 decades, more than 4 decades. And that led me, I graduated there, and my story is in the book. And so there's this magical moment that led to my son's healing. And that was after I graduated, and I was encouraged to apply to continue and learn the methodology. And I was like, I can't do it. He's so sick, and it's hard for me financially and everything. But something kept pulling me towards the email. I just felt it. I was supposed to apply. I did. And in that conversation that I had with a wonderful young woman at his office, just a few days later, she says to me, well, because I had told her about my son's illness, and she says, well, before I came to work for Canfield, I used to work for a doctor who everybody turns to when nobody knows what's wrong. So I couldn't believe my ears. And
Right.
I thought, well, this was why I was supposed to be in that moment. And not only did I get into the program and graduate the following fall, but 2 months later, my son was cured. And I kept on learning. So this completely shifted my life in a way that I had to find healing for myself. And the doctor, his name is Dr. Darren Clare, and he is in Westlake Village in California. And so he not only cured my son, he helped me cured me as well. Helped
Amazing.
me balance my hormones and just find my way back to myself. And
And sorry for interrupting, but I just want to get it clear. So you basically were kind of living your life, doing your own thing.
mhm,
Your son, very athletic, and it gets taken down by this mysterious illness, and you find yourself sort of plunged in there. In walks this, you know, awareness of, wow, getting some inspiration for yourself. Later on, you look at the trainer program. Later on, you're here, you are talking to somebody. So it's kind of that story of when you least suspect it, and you open yourself to the possibility of having more for yourself, because that's really what I'm hearing and what I love. And I love to feature that on this show, is like flipping your pain, turning it into a passion, and then maybe into a profit. And that's kind of what you're doing. You're coaching now, you're working on helping other people, you've kind of seen the light. But what was so important, and I want to ask you, and one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show, is what made you sort of choose to, I guess it was just for getting you through that hard time, because there's so many mothers in that situation where I see them sort of, oh, I couldn't possibly, even to be looking for inspiration for themselves. They're almost so devoted to the bedside or caring or, praying for their child. It sounds like there was just a spark in you still to sort of, was that just desperation, or was that you were fairly inspired from just being an inspired woman to kind of just even seek to care for yourself? Because it sounds like you were, you came across it and you identified the need to care for yourself.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's really, when you are dealing with illness for such a long time, and the fact was that when I woke up every morning, I didn't know if he was alive.
Mm,
That's how it was. That's how bad it was.
wow.
And so, yeah, I've always been adding to my education, and well, the thing was, it was really a matter of surviving for me. And and I did sign up for the program in 2016, a year after he got ill, but I didn't start learning until January 2017,
Oh, okay.
because I was in no condition to do it. But I made a decision.
Right.
We are responsible for our lives, and I am persistent. I never give up. So, and it was never an option to give up in this situation. So there I found something that I could listen to, that supported me, along the way, and that I could turn into a tool for me to be better able to help others.
Right.
And so it was, I was at home. I got PTSD, so I was with him every day, 24/7. And but it's really, when you have the computer, when you have the access to everything, and can do things online. It was really a lifesaver for me, because I would never have been able to take a course where I had to leave the house,
Right. Right.
and and I just, this gave me strength and support, but also confirmed that I had. So those are uh, dozens of success principles. The first one, like, take 100 responsibility for your life and your results. And so what was interesting when I started to learn and look at it was that I had been using most of the principles I had been using myself. And so that's probably why I was attracted to it.
Right. Right.
So, but because it was really to clarify things for me. And then I went on, because during the program, I met Dr. Deborah Sandella, the founder of the RIM Institute. So
Okay.
I kept on learning. So I'm a RIM facilitator, and I'm currently in the master's program.
Look at that, a whole trajectory. And that's
Yeah.
right. I'm always talking about that curvy hustle, or the ability to pivot. It's not like it's going to be so slow and flow and getting your life to be like so in the zone. I think in my world of mind body medicine practitioners and yogi people and things like that, it almost gets to the other extreme where nobody's accomplishing anything. No, it's not going to be that. Like, resistance at times is what humans need to really kind of step up. And that's kind of what I hear from your story and so many other women's stories. And the other thing is, this day and age, this couldn't necessarily be the story 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Like you said, having the technology meet with your background of experience of being a singer and having had some education, as well as being a mother, as well as kind of what your interests were in kind of using these principles, because they are universal principles. It's not like these things are like thought up by man. These are actually like kind of divine things that like you have to almost like rediscover through these times of contrast and resistance. So I absolutely love that. And the fact that it really just pivoted and gave you that curve in life, because life is a bunch of curves. I don't know who the heck really said it's supposed to be this straight line and only that line, because it makes it so stressful. I can see why we've lived in a world of survive, 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 fight, 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 because it's that mentality of like the linear grind. Everything's sort of against you. You got to get up and fight. It's tough and there's resistance, but I almost think that's kind of a woman's way. I mean, already, I guess maybe through the process of, we know what happens with childbirth, we get our periods, we still go to school with cramps. I mean, maybe we've just sort of grown up with a little bit more leadership skills under fire without necessarily turning as hostile as we could about it. And you kind of went with that flow. So I love that. So where now are you with, like, what are you wanting to do? Like, obviously your book was sort of your proclamation of your journey and sort of, how you rose to where you are. So where are you going to take this rise? What's Eva's focus now?
So my focus now is on the midwifery job. So actually what I'm doing, I'm combining all those things, and I'm creating, or I'm currently in the process of recording an online program called First 10 Days.
Beautiful.
And that is to help women the first 10 days, or actually the first weeks after birth, with the focus on the first 10 days, because it's really essential to get the support. So I'm addressing the mother's physical health, mental health, breastfeeding, the newborn, the father or spouse, the siblings. I'm talking about meditations. I got guided meditations in there, and affirmations, and all kinds of things. The mindset, of course, because that is something that we forget to talk about.
So neglected.
Yeah, it is actually. And during this time, you know how it is when you have a newborn in your hands and you don't know what to do, and your hormones are all over the place. So just a simple thing like sleep when the baby's sleeping, it can just prevent that you get depression. So because
Right.
postpartum depression is so common, 10 to 15% get postpartum depression. And so just by talking about the mindset, and I've created special guided meditations, and I think it can make a huge difference.
Yeah, and like I said, it is so. My first brand was the Belly Guru, and I really did choose that not because I was so obsessed with my pregnancy or anything like that. I had very smooth pregnancies, but I did suffer from postpartum depression. I did, here I was working in a top New York hospital. I had, gained 28 pounds, felt fine, worked, pretty late in the game as a physical therapist, so I was active, and for the most part, it was a very successful pregnancy, even a successful delivery, right? Have a healthy baby, da, da, da. But, I didn't yet understand all the functional medicine stuff I understand now. It just wasn't really in the mainstream healthcare. And like I said, here I was knowing all this science of rehab and recovery. And I even missed my pelvic floor injury for a couple of years because that wasn't popular. So many levels. So I went into that, and I can tell you that that was 2004-5. I was opening up the Belly Guru Yoga Training Center, and I purposely brought in yoga because I saw such a gap, at least in the Western model of, such a separation. Like there was nothing for women postpartum unless you were suicidal or going to injure your kid. And it's sadly still kind of like that. So I think this program will be very helpful. At least now women are looking on their own. They weren't even looking. I didn't even realize that could be a concept until I went into women's health even years later. My daughter was born in 99. My practice didn't start till 2005. I went into that. So, um, I think that'll be very helpful. So if, looking back at everything, the life that you had, the now, what you went through to get to where you are, the roles you've played, the things you've done. If you could talk to Eva 10 years ago, so, before we even hit, maybe like 2010 or so, what do you wish you could, or if you could just kind of proclaim it and send it through the air, through the ethers to her, maybe, help her out a little bit. What do you think you would bring her as a wise woman talk right now to her?
It's actually quite simple. Book an appointment with a RIM facilitator, because by doing that, you can dissolve all your negative feelings, everything that is blocking you, everything that's stuck in your body, and just set it free, so you can fully be yourself.
Mm. So describe that a little bit for any of the listeners that don't really know that technique. Is that a somatosensory sort of somatotherapy type of thing where you do some mind body work, or?
It is a whole brain and body work.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
so RIM stands for regenerating images in memory.
mm,
And
mhm,
it uses both the left brain and the right brain, the imagination and body sensing. And it's really uh, the most, well, I haven't come across anything as healing as this. And so when you think about an old memory, uh, so research show that when you think about an old memory, it becomes destabilized in the nervous system. So what RIM does is that it accesses the memory without without you reliving what has happened, but you can work with it to dissolve it and create a new memory.
mm. So
So
nice. So that sounds to me a lot of like how I applied the yoga, because a lot of the work were kind of, I kind of felt like moving their body was through this sacred geometry of kind of unlocking certain patterns, you know, obviously coming as a physical therapist, looking at body patterns and seeing their habitual, their learned things, right? So
Yeah.
we take on, when I went into, I don't know if you know the work of Dr. Baral, but a lot of visceral manipulation, which sounds much more aggressive than it actually is. It's actually very gentle uh, release technique that's targeting the organs and tissues to some extent, mostly the organs, for holding patterns. And it was just so amazing using it. And when you were talking about that technique, you know, the tissues really, the issues really do stay in the tissues. You know, this is our instrument. And a lot of people don't, you know, we've obviously learned that we're sort of a body, and we're this person, and these other things are like secondary to us, but we're actually, at least what I believe, is we are an energetic being that has a body. We have a mind, like we have these tools to use. And if we're shocked or in trauma, or, you know, obviously something's thrown off, we could go into a dysfunction and we can get past it. But just like somebody walks with a limp for their whole life,
Mhm.
or, you know, has flat feet after having hip weakness or something, we can end up holding these certain patterns of thought and behavior and retriggers and things like that. So I really love that there's so many of these kind of mind body practices that are being much more utilized and expanded upon, because that's really what yoga was, you know, like,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of growth out of that, whether you want to lean a little bit more sort of towards psychotherapy or physical therapy, or more functional, you know, uh, spirituality, you know, things like that. There's something for everyone. So if we were to flip that and say now, so the work you're doing and bringing all this together and deciding to work with these women postpartum, if I said, okay, Eva, so if I talk to you in 10 years, what am I going to hear out of your mouth? What are you going to tell me and this Eva today, you know, here sitting in 2021? What do you hope you're able to tell her that you've accomplished or done or see in the world?
Well, I would hope that I would have helped millions of women and families um, during this time, postpartum, and made a difference in the world. Because I really want to use my education and experience to help people, and I believe I can do it, because there are so many simple things that need to be said, and it's so easy, even though it's better to be there in person. But uh, by doing an online program like this, it can really change so many lives.
Yeah, because
And
they don't have access normally,
right,
even bringing up the conversations.
yeah. So it's very important, and you know, I've done more than 8,000 in-home visits. I have 5 children.
Wow.
I almost died when my oldest was born. Uh, One of my sons had VSD, ventricular septal
Hmm.
defect.
Hmm.
So I've been, and I had my oldest one when I was 18, and my youngest one when I was 47. So
Totally different. Totally different.
I would say I have a good experience and education in this. I graduated as a midwife in 1982. So my second oldest son said to me, "Mom, it's really your obligation to get your knowledge out there to the world."
I love that. And I love that he supported you on that. So tell us a little bit about, because obviously I'm in the American healthcare system. How does it work where you are with midwifery? Because I think that's a conversation. Unfortunately, you know, our medical system here in America, our maternity health scores are horrible. We're down at the list. It's really atrocious. So tell us a little bit of the difference of the way that you work with women there, because I think people have to hear how it works in other countries and how it works around the world, because all we hear is socialist country or democracy or this or that, as if it's this. But how does something as everyday and so important as maternal health care work? And like, how do you work into that system right now, or how have you had the chance over the years, and even your experiences?
Well, I have worked at the hospital, obviously, but the past years, I've been working independently, doing the in-home visits. So everyone, we have like a social insurance here in Iceland, and so the healthcare is free. For the most part, you pay
For the main things.
yeah, for the main things, and so you don't have to pay for the visits to the midwife while you're pregnant. At the hospital, the midwives deliver the babies. Of course,
Oh, okay. So there's
yeah.
not really like, where is OBGYN in the whole thing?
Well, it's there,
But it's
but
just like
but
emergencies?
they are just yeah, they come in if there's an emergency, or of course they come in every day to the it's a
Right, the hospital.
it's a collaboration, of course. The doctors are there, and they of course know what's going on everywhere, and like you know but when the babies are born, usually the midwives deliver the babies, and then we have of course the postpartum period is well, the women, they go home pretty early, and so if they go home within the first 3 days, they get in-home visits from a midwife for about a week. It has to be within the first 10 days after birth. So that's where the name comes from. The name of my course, First 10 Days. It's because this service has to take place within the first 10 days. And if you, for example, have a C-section, then you're able to go home after 48 hours. And then you get the daily visits from the midwife. So, and those are free.
Yeah.
And another thing that I was really surprised when I was just looking into how things are in the US, because we have paid maternity and paternity leave here in Iceland. So it was recently extended to 12 months. So what I saw was that US is one of 5 countries in the world where this is not offered.
Right. It makes it very difficult. So you can imagine, even now with like extra stressors, not getting that, just even that support, that post-surgical support. I can tell you as a physical therapist, again, another reason why I went into sort of the postpartum, the prenatal, pre-fertility conversation all the way. I decided to just widen it out. I was like, this is not a 10-month conversation. This is a 2-year conversation. There's time before you have to get strong for it, just like you prep for any sport. And then there's time you have to get back. But there was this gap. I used to do a postpartum check-in, like a postnatal visit thing. And it was really stuff like, but it's those little things you don't notice that we don't necessarily get here. So I think your course would be, really super marketable here in America, because it was even stuff like how to hold so that you're not dealing with like this neck pain on top of everything, like these little things, like just sleep right now. I'll put the baby in the these little things that people don't really. And even women, the superwoman generation X popping out the babies, back in the 90s and things with me, that stuff was looked at. I should be able to do all this. I should be able to do all that. And that has carried over with if you don't have help, now you got to do it. Like, it's not even like people are giving you a choice now, and it's just like it ain't there. So yeah. And you said 1 of 5, right? 1 of 5 top countries. Yeah. So people do listen to this. This is a very big problem, because I always felt like if mama ain't happy, the family ain't happy. If the family ain't happy, society ain't happy, because everybody comes out of that family, and that's what society is, right? Your own reflections on what the world was in your little world.
Mhm.
So where can we, if I'm listening to all this and I'm like, this is great, I would love to have a mentor really into motherhood, because that's kind of what I feel like your focus of midwifery is, kind of taking the postpartum, conversation, which I think is awesome. Um, so this mentor into motherhood, where can I contact you, find you the most, if I really want to pursue this, or look at your course or anything like that?
Hmm. So of course, obviously my course isn't up yet.
Right.
But you can sign up. Just go to first10days.com,
Okay,
and there you can sign up on an email list, and we'll notify you when the course is launched.
great.
And for if you want to read my book, you can find it on Amazon. It's called Women Who Rise, Eva Alberts, Women Who Rise. My webpage is evaalberts.com,
Great.
and my handle is @success with Eva. So you
At
should be able
Success
to
with
find me.
Eva. Great. So I will have all of these on the show notes for you to have clickable show notes. So make it super easy. The only thing stopping you from speaking to her is basically clicking on the link and going to the page. So are there any last bits of advice you have with how you want to make that impact in the world, or even with what you're seeing now? Obviously, this may be listened to years later, but right now we are in the midst of the pandemic, and I can imagine um, there's even that extra layer. Do you have any advice for either women who need to rise, who might be sitting there next to an ill child, or thinking, like their life is over when they can make a pivot, or even in the work that you're doing and bringing to the into the first 10 days conversation?
Well, I think I will just keep it simple and give you my postpartum prescription. Use common sense and trust your intuition.
Love it. Amen. Amen. And for that, ladies and gentlemen, you need to take and do the subtle things. You do need to work on your mindset. You do need to, listen to what we were just talking about, the journey to get to this point, and even what am I going to do now? Because I know that's probably a question in some people's heads. I know a lot of women, you have the baby and you're like, all of a sudden, you're like, things that were important to you are not important to you. Things that weren't important to you are important to you. The common sense, that's the universal law, guys, but you got to be able to tap into it. So I thank you so much for anybody who is listening in on this and taking some time. I hope this was quality time and information. Thank you so much for meeting us here on the internet, Eva, and I wish you the best of luck with this. So thank you so much for your work, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening into this episode of Owning Her Health with Dr. Lisa Holland. To learn more about her personal and professional development service, visit her online at drlisahollandpt.com.